Good morning, or depending on when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross and I was taught how to voice for radio, so I've made some videos. This is from Newport Regionals, the very first regionals in the UK just 3 days after Breakthrough was made legal. So these are the first really big tournaments around where the Breakthrough, the new set, will be legal. So you can learn about the new cards, the new decks, and the new strategies by watching these videos. I should thank the lovely Deborah Richards, who not only put on this tournament, but she let me record and she made it really easy for me to do so at the same time. So thank you very much to her. We are in the format X and Y to Ancient Origins, and we are playing 6 rounds of 50-minute best of 3. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so on the left here we have Nathan Mclewee. We saw him in the final from London Regionals in the videos I posted up just last week. He's on the right. And on the left we have Tom Hall. And Tom is a chap who should be well known to a lot of you. Used to be a big writer over at sixprizes.com. He's cut Worlds before. He's been to Worlds many, many times. So a very well-known player. And like I say, Nathan, not quite as well known, but he has, I believe, played at Worlds before. And like I said, we saw him in the final last week with Night March. And it looks like he's playing Night March again. And as you can see, because I've put it by his name and in the title of this video, he is indeed playing Night March. Tom is going to be playing fighting bats with the whole Lucha and the Lucario and the Zubat and all of that. So we shall see. Although, for reasons I'll explain in a minute, Nathan does have an inherent advantage in this particular matchup. We are expecting a win from Nathan here. So Tom gets an Ultra Ball straight away. He's got a Zubat in the active. He had to drop a Shaman and a Golbat, but he's likely playing 3 or 4 Golbats, and he's likely playing, 2 or 3 Shamans, and he wants to get that Lucario. Now, the thing about Lucario is, on the one hand, he does go through the Joltik and the Pumpkaboo very easily. On the other hand, he is weak to Psychic, and Pumpkaboo attacks as a Psychic Pokemon, so that is a bit of an issue. It could let Nathan jump ahead in the prize race, which of course is how this Night March deck tends to try and win its games. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, this is the very first tournament where Breakthrough is legal, or at least the first big tournament, first regionals, or at the very least, the first UK regionals. But we're seeing both decks here that were big before Breakthrough, and that fits with what we were thinking. We see a Corinna coming down from Tom because he hasn't played a supporter yet this turn. And this is what we were expecting, to be perfectly honest with you. There are no huge decks coming out of Breakthrough that we expect to be amazing. We expect to see a lot of the same decks with some new tricks. So maybe we'll see some cards like Judge or Floatstone or Giovanni's Scheme or things of that nature that we'll see, hopefully, if they are being played. We shall see these as the game goes along. Now, Night March we've seen in previous videos, and as always, even though they were pre-Breakthrough, I encourage you to check out. I've put a whole bunch of UK regional games up. Oh, and here is a new card from Breakthrough. We see a Gallade and a Level Ball. Now, Gallade is one of these. Now, is he going to be playing it as a Maxis, do we think? Or is he actually playing a full line of them? Now, Gallade is an interesting Pokemon. It's one of the new ones from Breakthrough. It does, I believe it's 70 damage for a double colorless, and then 60 more. That's a stage 2, Tom. And it does I believe it's 60 standard and 130, and he gets it in the discard of Ultra Ball there, if you played a supporter that turn. It's definitely, I forget which way round it is, but it's definitely 130 damage if you played a supporter in the last turn. And of course, you will have played a supporter in the last turn in almost every turn you go for. So Tom gets an Ultra Ball and a Level Ball there to get a couple of Zubats. The bats are really, really going to be key for Tom in this game here, because he can't really afford to be attacking with the Lucario. Nathan, for his side, is going to be thinking, right, take out Lucario, take out Shaman, 2 prizes to go. So the way we see a fighting stadium come down here. Unless he's going to play a Shaman. There we go. I was going to say it would potentially have been too early, because we're expecting Nathan to be playing 4 Dimension Valley, so putting that fighting stadium down means you're going to lose it pretty quickly, to be honest with you. However, you want to, empty your hand so you can draw more cards with Shaman. The setup ability allows you to draw until you've got 4 in hand, so it's not the end of the world. Do remember that a Shaman can one-hit KO a Joltik, and a Shaman with a Muscle Band can leave a Pumpkaboo 20 damage from being KO'd, which means 1 Golbat drop will in fact get the KO on him. Gallade is 60 if you don't play a Sporter, 70 if you do. So Nathan is having his first turn here. He is going second, and it means that he will have the opportunity here to get the first attack, and that could be very, very big indeed. Now, there's almost kind of a smorgasbord of kind of fun here for Nathan if he can get going, because on the one hand, he wants to take out the Zubat to stop Tom's bats, which are Tom's best weapon against Nathan. And a fairly painful Sycamore there. The 2 VS Seeker are going to hurt. But on the other hand, he wants to take out the Lucario and the Shaman for 2 prizes. Now, all Tom can really do in this game is try and KO, because we see a Battle Compressor from Nathan. We'd probably... Unless he's got a... No, we're just going to see Free Lampin here. He's not even going to want to drop a Supporter because he's got the Juniper. Now, he might drop a Hex Maniac with the Battle Compressor so that he can reuse it with VS Seeker, but we know he's down to his last 2 VS Seekers. And the fact that he's played a Sycamore means that he's not played a Hex Maniac, which means he hasn't turned off abilities for Tom's turn, which means if Tom can get 2 Golbats next turn, he can actually KO that Joltik without using an attack. And then maybe he can use the Shaman to get a KO on something else. And we do see the Hex Maniac coming down there along with 2 Lampants, which is not terribly surprising for the reasons I said. What Tom needs to do here is try and win the prize race, and he does that by using KOs with Golbat and Crobat's ability damage, 20 when you evolve to Golbat, 30 when you evolve to Crobat. He does it by attacking with Crobat, which does do, and we see a Tails on roller skates there, which does do 30 damage to anywhere on the board, which will KO something like a Joltik or a Feebas. And even Pumpkaboo's got 60 HP, and we see another Battle Compressor here. So if you can drop a Crobat down, you do 30 damage to the Pumpkaboo, then you can skill dive it with the Crobat you've just evolved and hit it for 60. And remember, Golbat and Crobat, mostly Crobat, they're psychic Pokemon that attack for 1 colourless. So if Nathan puts down a Dimension Valley, Tom can actually attack with the Crobat for free. And that is the only way Tom wins here. He wants to keep his EXs off the field. Shaman's not a bad play, but Shaman really you put down so that you can get KOs with it on the Joltik and on the Pumpkaboo in conjunction with the Golbat. What Tom does not want to do is start using all the Lucarios and, putting the Shaman down on his side of the field, because all that Nathan's going to do here is just pick off those EXs, getting easy prizes. Don't forget that Shaman is weak to Joltik and Lucario is weak to Pumpkaboo, meaning that they will be KO'd very easily. Now, Nathan's getting rid of a 3rd Lampant now, and he's getting rid of an AZ and a Zerosic. What he's doing here is he's dumping all of his one-off supporters so that he can reuse them with VS Seeker. Usually a very good play, but remember he's down to 2 VS Seekers in his deck. He had to get rid of 2 with his opening Sycamore. So, and I've had this myself this weekend. I was competing in this very same tournament. We see ahead, so he gets to draw 3 cards. He does potentially put himself in the position here that he could actually run out of VS Seeker and not have anything. And we see another heads on roller skates, so he's 2 for 3 there, which is pretty good. Where he's got not enough VS Seekers to reuse all of his one-offs. However, he may only need 1 Hex, 1 Zerosic, etc. as he goes, and if he doesn't get rid of them with Battle Compressor, they could end up, really, clunking up his hand in later turns. But we've seen him drop the AZ, we've seen him drop the Hex Maniac, we've seen him drop the Zerosic. He can only use 2 of them from here on in. So we see a Pumpkaboo coming down from Nathan, which is a decent start. And we see an Acrobike. Now, interestingly here, Nathan is probably going to have to KO the Zubat. Oh, no, he's not. There goes 2 Feebas. Now, here is the hope for Tom here. He uses 2 Crobats to KO one of the Feebas. And he uses a Shaman, put the Shaman active, Tom. You use the Shaman to KO the Joltik if he's got a DCE. And remember, a lot of these fighting decks don't play DCE. So if he doesn't have DCE, all of my attack with Shaman is completely useless. If he had a DCE, it would be a nice idea to kill the Joltik with the Shaman, get it back into his hand, while evolving to a pair of Crobats and killing a benched Feebas. Because at the moment, Nathan can see all of these Pokemon out that he can just get 2 prizes off. And Nathan is sitting there thinking, I'm going to win the prize trade. I'm going to take 2 prizes per turn, not 3, rather than 1 for Tom. And let's not forget, we talked in previous Night March videos, and like I've said, I've put a couple of Night March videos up there, so I heartily recommend that you do this, that you have a look at them. Ooh, now, there could be a love. If Tom gets double Golbat here, there could be an awesome play coming up here. He could actually get 3 KOs this turn. If he hits 2 Golbats, he can put 20 on each of the benched Feebases, then attack with the active Golbat, which will do 30 to the active Joltik, knocking it out, and doing 10 to each of the benched Feebas, which will knock it out in conjunction with the damage he did from the Golbats. So if Tom can double Golbat here, he's getting a treble KO with a Golbat. And that would really start to even it out. And it doesn't look like he's got it, but a double Golbat play here would be immense. He could use the abilities from the 2 Golbats to put both the Feebas down to 10 HP. With the Muscle Band, Golbat does 10 to every Pokemon on your opponent's side of the field. So with a Muscle Band, the Golbat would do 30 to the active, KOing the Joltik, and 10 to all of the bench, KOing both the Feebas. That would be awesome. Now he's got 1 Ultra Ball here. So actually, so what he would not want to do here is do 2 Golbats to KO 1 Feebas or 1 Joltik. He can evolve. Now, he can evolve the active, and as long as he's got an energy, he will get a KO here. Sorry, 2 KOs. He'll get at least 2 KOs. So he can put the 20 damage on one of the benched Feebas, and then he can use Golbat's attack, which does 10 to all of your opponent's Pokemon, but with the Muscle Band, it will do 30 to the active, and it will actually KO the Joltik and one of the Feebas. Like I said in the opening here, Nathan had to go after the Bats last turn, because Bats are Tom's best weapon here. Now, a Focus Sash on the Lucario is going to be really useful. Remember that the Lucario is weak to Psychic. Oh, and he's got the energy, so we've got a double KO here. Now, let's not forget that even if he leaves the Feebas on with 10 damage, he will still be able to KO. Oh, he's got a second Ultra Ball. So he needs to play that second Ultra Ball to get the Golbat. And we're seeing an awesome free prize turn here. And, going to give myself a little bit of props. Totally saw this coming. Now, I like the Focus Sash on the Lucario. We know that Nathan's dumped his Zerosic, and he's probably only playing one of them. We know that he's down to 2 VS Seeker, and we know that he's going to want to play Hex Maniac to turn off the Bats. So what Tom can do here is take 3 prizes this turn, then he can use the Lucario to actually essentially take 2 prizes. You take a prize with a Lucario, it gets hit, but the Focus Sash comes into play, gets discarded, leaves him on 10 damage, and then he takes a second KO before he goes down. Oh, this is going to be one of the most fun plays I think I've ever seen in one of these videos I've done. This is phenomenal. I enjoy this. And then we see a ridiculous free prize turn from Tom on his second prize of the game. One of the big themes this weekend was Bats. Bats were huge. They were absolutely huge. They were just redonkulous. They were really, really big. So I think I started making a point a minute ago and forgot about it. I apologise. It's completely gone. But I got interrupted by the possibility of that amazing play. Now, Nathan is still in a decent position here because he can still... Oh, I don't know, actually. Now, he's got to get a Hex Maniac this turn, or else this could all be over, to be honest. Because if Tom gets a Crobat next turn, then he's going to get a KO on the Joltik. He can then get a KO with the potentially get a KO with the Lucario, or even with a Crobat, and then he's down to 1 prize. Whereas Nathan's got at least 3 attacks to get the win here. So there is every possibility here that Tom's going to pull out a win. Now, generally, I like the Night March player in this matchup. However, it is very, very bat dependent. If the Night March player, and we see the Milotic going down there, most of these Night March decks don't actually play any recovery cards other than like a 2-2 Milotic line. Has the ability to get something out of your discard. So with both the Feebas going down, not only has Tom taken 3 prizes, but Nathan is actually in a position where he's not going to be able to recover things like double colourless energy. So he might be down to 4 for the entire game, and he's already used 1. Not to mention the fact that he needs to use at least 2 Lissandras to win this game, and he's only got 2 VS Seeker left, although he's probably got 2 Lissandra as well. So as I was saying, what the Night March player wants to do is just ignore the bats and KO EXs, but if you do that, then the bats are going to kill you. So what you need to do is use Hex Maniac when the bats are threatening, take KOs on the EXs, jobs are good. And now, obviously, you can't Lissandra the EXs and Hex Maniac in the same turn, but you're either KOing EXs or you're Hex Maniac and then using Hex Maniac and then killing the bats before they can evolve. Either way, you're putting yourself forward. And that does give the Night March player a good route to victory. But the Fighting Bats player here, it's all about the bats. As we saw from Tom there, and that was an unusual turn. If you can just get a couple KOs with bats here and there, then you're fine. Ideally, you evolve to Golbats to KO things like Joltik and Feebas, and then you use a combination of evolving to Crobat plus Skill Dive to take out something like a Pumpkaboo. So if Tom's got a Crobat here, he can Skill Dive the active he can use the ability to half KO the Pumpkaboo and then Skill Dive it for the KO. But does he do that, or does he just KO the Joltik? I'm a fan of KOing the Joltik here, but he really wants to get another Zubat down because he's running out of bats. Now, here's what Tom needs to do. Oh, he's got another Zubat. Now here he needs to Skill Dive, and this is awesome. Now here we go. This is fun. Now he's going to be able to do 50 to the Pumpkaboo. Remember that his first attack goes through weakness. Oh, and Tom's playing his own Hex Maniac here to turn off abilities until the end of Nathan's turn. So here he's going to do 50 to the Pumpkaboo. Oh, and Nathan just scoops. He would have done 50 to the Pumpkaboo, leaving him on 10 damage left, which means if Tom can evolve to Golbat next turn, he's down to 1 prize, and it really is all over. Not to mention the fact that Tom could have used a Lysander or something to KO a Shaman. So a pretty quick game 1 there from Tom, and, you know, unfortunately, there was very little Nathan could do. Maybe you argue that he doesn't lay down the Feebases. Maybe he should have seen that play coming. With all the Zubats out. But this is where Tom needs to go with this game. It needs to be bats. Lucario are okay, but we talked about this in a previous bats video, which I'm hoping you've watched. Even though this is post-breakthrough and the others were pre-breakthrough, really, ladies and gentlemen, what you want to do is, watch those videos. They are very, very, very relevant still. Most of the decks kind of stay as they are. Now, here's the thing. You can use a Lucario if it's got a Focus Sash. And maybe Nathan uses a Zerosic to get rid of the Focus Sash and take a one-hit KO for 2 prizes. But if he can only do that when the Lucario's in the active. He can't Lissandra it up and Zerosic the Focus Sash because you're not allowed to play 2 supporters in 1 turn unless you're Jake Wolven in the top 4 of UK Nationals. So, for that reason, you bench it with a Focus Sash and you're pretty safe for the time being. Even if Nathan gets rid of the Focus Sash when Lucario's on the bench, you can just put another one on instead. So it's really not a huge problem. What he can't do is just put Lucario down and hope to draw a Focus Sash later, because then Lissandra gets 2 prizes. Even with the bats, it's quite hard for Tom to take 6 prizes with bats while Nathan's KOing EXs for 2 prizes a turn. Especially, now the other thing Nathan needs to do here is really hold off on the Joltik and the Feebas. Try and focus on using Pumpkaboo and use the Milotic when you really need it. Or, only bench a Feebas on a turn when you Hex Maniac. And the reason is very, very simple. He can't afford to let Tom take those prizes. And he doesn't need to let Tom take those prizes. He doesn't need to use Milotic to recover DCE if he's taking 3 EX prizes, KOs for 6 prizes. He only needs 3 DCE for that. Now, he can put the Feebas down this turn. Tom cannot possibly kill it with bats next turn, so that gives him an entire turn. And worst case scenario, if he sees 2 Zubats on Tom's bench next turn, he evolves the Milotic. Nice and simple. Now, Tom's got the Hawlucha in the active there. Really good starter because it's got free retreat. And remember that a Hawlucha with a Strong Energy, Muscle Band, and Fighting Stadium will one-hit KO a Shaymin. So late game, if Tom needs two prizes just to finish off the game, he can just Lysander up a Shaymin. And as long as he's got a Hawlucha with Strong Energy, Muscle Band, Fighting Stadium, because remember, Hawlucha's ability goes through the resistance, he will get the KO. Although, interestingly enough, Nathan could stop that option, because if Nathan plays a Hex Maniac, that turns off Hawlucha's ability, and actually means that Shaymin would resist it. So Hawlucha's attack, even with all 3 of those extras, would only do 100 damage. So we see a Super Scoop up here to recover the Shaymin. We also saw a Battle Compressor, which got rid of 2 Lampent. As I've explained in all my Night March videos, those Lampents will never see the field. They're stage 1s, you don't play the basic. They're just there to go in the discard and allow you to do more damage with Night March. Remember, the Night March attack does 20 damage for each Night Marcher in the discard pile. So for the Lampent, you get 4 in there. But he also put a Sycamore in the discard pile. That tells us he has no supporter in his hand. So what he's doing is putting the Sycamore in there. Because he's got 4 Sycamore in his deck, there's 4 cards he can draw. However, if he puts 1 Sycamore in the discard pile, he's now got 3 Sycamore in his deck and 4 VS Seeker that can take 1 out the discard. So there's now 7 cards he can use to get the Sycamore out the discard. Now that is a really potentially dodgy play from Nathan there. This could go either way. On the one hand, Feebas is very easy for Tom to KO. Remember, Zubat Muscle Band. Zubat Muscle Band will KO a Feebas. On the other hand, he's left a Shaymin in the active, and there's a Hawlucha there. So all Tom needs to do is go Strong Energy, Muscle Band, Fighting Stadium, and he's 2 prizes up. And remember, Tom is going to be able to take, hopefully, some prizes with his bats. But as I said at the beginning of this second game, it's going to be difficult for him to take all of his prizes with bats. If he can get 2 prizes straight away with this Hawlucha, and we see Tom getting a Hex Maniac in the discard again just so he can reuse it with VS Seeker, then straight away, we're in a position here where Tom can have 4 prizes remaining, and that's much easier to get with the bats. So he's got the Gallade in the discard pile as well. I believe this might have been what I was talking about earlier. You use the card Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick. It's a supporter that you can only play if you've got no cards in hand, i.e. just so you play the Maxie's and you've got an empty hand. And you draw 5 cards and you put any fighting Pokemon on the bench. So you can put a stage 2 down as if it was a basic, hence the Gallade. And it's got a really nice ability that lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and rearrange them. And it allows you to, have a really good attack for just 2 energy. Although he probably doesn't play the DCE here to properly utilize the attack. Now, Tom's gone safe and put the Muscle Band on the Zubat there. As I said before, I'd like the Muscle Band on the Hawlucha. I mean, Tom's 1 game up, but Tom will know how awkward. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Night March auto wins fighting bats, not at all. I'm saying if Night March can stream KOs on EX Pokemon, then there really are no issues there in terms of Night March winning the game. It's so difficult for these bats decks to take enough prizes quickly enough. But if you combine the bats and the Focus Sash, there really is no problem whatsoever. So Tom's using a VS Seeker there just to play a Hex Maniac, to turn off abilities, and he's basically saying... Oh no, sorry, he's then using Zubat's attack. It does 10 damage to any Pokemon on your opponent's side of the field, so he puts it on the Feebas. And of course he puts it on the Feebas. He can now drop a Golbat, and use the ability damage to KO that Feebas, which means Nathan's going to have to evolve it to a Milotic in order to stop Tom getting that KO. But remember, Tom played a Hex Maniac, which means even if Nathan evolves it, he ain't getting anything from the discard pile. And it looks like Nathan doesn't have much at all. Oh, it looks like Nathan's really struggling here. I mean, if he uses that Shaman, he's going to be left with just a Feebas on his side of the field. Because remember, Shaman has to go back to your hand when you use its Sky Return. So I actually started watching this game and he's going to have to evolve to Milotic here. He's got no choice. In my experience, Night March has had a really good fighting bats matchup. That is not the way it's looking in this particular game. And honestly, yesterday when I asked the boys how the game went on stream, Nathan went, it's Night March against fighting bats, so, went like it should. Which I assumed meant that Nathan had ruffle-stomped Tom. So I was actually watching this video expecting Nathan to win. Obviously, I didn't watch the game I was playing at the time. It looks like my earlier assumption might be wrong. Tom is up by 1-0, and he's just looking in ludicrous, almost hilarious control. Tom can win the game this turn. Oh no, he can't win the game this turn. Sorry, I forgot about the Feebas evolving to Milotic. I got too excited for my own good. What Tom can do is KO the Shaman, get rid of all the energy on it's doable. It's going to be difficult. Get rid of the energy on Nathan's side of the field. Leave him with just a Milotic. In the active position, Milotic has a retreat cost of 2. That is a pain. Now, Tom doesn't have much here. Doesn't even have an energy to put down. But let's not forget that the Golbat attacks are free with the Dimension Valley, which I'm pretty sure at this stage Nathan is wishing he hadn't put down. But you see Tom here, he's played this game beautifully. He's gone for the bats. He's got the free Zubats out right away. And that's just absolutely key here. Getting all of them out as quick as he has just had such an effect here. Because there really isn't... Nathan's sitting there going, well, if I put down another Feebas, Tom can kill it with bats. If I put down Joltix, Tom can kill it with bats. To be perfectly honest, if he puts down a Pumpkaboo, Tom can kill it with bats. It would take 2 Golbats and a Crobat, or indeed a Crobat and a Snipe, but it's doable. And you see here that Tom is Hex Maniacing every single turn, whilst threatening with bats, and apparently Hex Maniac not done very well here in terms of Nathan's side of the board, because it's very difficult for anyone to do anything. You've got to have the supporters in hand when you're Hex Maniac. And he doesn't. Now, here comes a Hawlucha. Now, remember, Hawlucha's attack does 60 damage. Oh, there we go. I was going to say it will be 10 damage short, but it's all right. Although, weirdly, if Tom Hex Maniacs this turn, then that will turn off Hawlucha's ability and he won't get the KO, so he doesn't Hex Maniac. He goes 2 prizes up, and now Nathan has access to abilities again, which is good. But honestly, he's got a Focus Sash on the Hawlucha, so it's going to be very difficult for Nathan to get a KO. And it doesn't look like Nathan has much of anything here. It really doesn't. So... yeah. It's looking bad for Nathan. It's looking very bad for Nathan. Now, the good news is the whole Lucha can't attack anything that isn't a non-EX, so it can't attack anything on the board. But all that Tom's going to do here is just snipe the Pumpkaboo on the bench for 30 and get the KO here. After playing another Hex-Maniac. This is what I've been telling you about on my podcast, PTCGRadio, in recent weeks. Hex-Maniac is just all-encompassing, and Nathan's had enough. Fair enough. Nothing he can do there. He gives up the game, and to be honest, you can understand why, because really, what else is he going to do at this stage? He had lost, unfortunately. So a game which I thought would be quite favourable for Night March, and please put in the comments, feel free to tell me I'm stupid and Fighting Bats stomps Night March, or I'm stupid and Night March stomps Fighting Bats. It can go either way. I hope I've explained the matchup in enough detail. Thank you very much to Tom and Nathan for agreeing to be on stream and giving it their all. I very much appreciate that. Thank you to the lovely Deborah Richards for firstly putting on a fantastic event, and secondly, not only allowing me to record at the event, but, setting up a table off to the side and really making it as easy as possible to allow me to record. I really, really appreciate that. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe. You know how YouTube works by now. Thank you very much for watching. Round 2 will be coming very shortly. And we're featuring some interesting decks in round 2. You are going to want to watch it. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.